We have a strong commitment and history of restorative approaches in Kirklees, and I'm pleased that the partnership has moved towards being a fully restorative community safety partnership. In Kirklees, we have a rich menu of options available to support people. This is ranging from dealing with high-level crime and disorder to lower-level antisocial behaviour and nuisance behaviour, all of which has a huge impact on the lives of residents. There are highly trained and committed people who are available in the partnership to support residents through that journey. In terms of antisocial and nuisance behaviour, your council officers, police officers and housing officers can all signpost you to where you can get support using restorative principles in order to deal with the situation.
Lynette had been in contact with her local neighbourhood policing team and the Kirklees Antisocial Behaviour Partnership because she was getting increasingly concerned about the behaviour of a group of young people congregating on the street outside her house. Lynette reported that the young people were there almost every night and out late on a weekend, sometimes drinking and creating a lot of noise. This had led to her and some of her neighbours feeling fearful because when they had tried to speak to the group of girls, they had been met with challenging attitudes and at times had suffered verbal abuse. After speaking to all the agencies, Lynette agreed for a mediator to visit her at home to explore the possible options and also look at what other support might be available. This allowed Lynette to talk about what had happened, but more importantly to make an informed choice regarding the way forward, which in this case resulted in some indirect communication between Lynette and the young people.
Kirklees Youth Offending Team have invested very heavily in the Restorative Justice Department here, and we're made up of the Victim Liaison Unit and also Restorative Justice Officers. So we work very closely with victims and their families, offering a very personal service that addresses their needs. It's very much an individual thing. It's about building some strong relationships. Quite often in that process, for the young person themselves to be a part of that, which is entirely voluntary, it's a really meaningful exercise. But it does give them an opportunity to realise, probably for the first time, the extent of the damage that they can cause through their offending behaviour. By hearing it firsthand in a face-to-face meeting or indirectly from their victims, quite often the reality is that one that they hadn't anticipated in the first instance when they actually committed the offence. And quite regularly that's something that does mean that they think very hard about perhaps repeating those being involved in those similar circumstances.
Being able to deliver restorative justice interventions in probation is so important. It allows us to bring two parties together to work together towards a common goal for a positive outcome. A positive example recently involved a service user and a victim coming together in a conference. The victim was quite apprehensive about the service user being released and was worried about what would happen if they bumped into each other. So with that in mind, the case conference went ahead and it gave the service user and the victim a chance to explore what might happen, and the victim asked the service user to respect his personal space, but to say hello if they bumped into each other. The whole process was really positive and gave the victim and the service user a chance to explore the future and had a really positive outcome.
I've seen the importance of restorative justice in integrated offender management, and I've seen the impact it can have both on the victim and the offender. There are 17,929 fewer victims of crime in West Yorkshire in this last financial year, and I think restorative justice can take credit for part of that reduction.
Whenever I'd spotted this individual outside the store or perhaps on the CCTV screen as I was sat in the office, there was almost immediately a feeling of dread, as I knew I would have to sit around and deal with whatever he was about to do for the next few hours, and that was going to impact on my life and my time and my family ultimately. On one occasion I can remember he came into the store and made a beeline for the alcohol, straight to the high-end stuff, as usual, vodka, picked up his bottle of choice and just straight back to the exit. I'd been watching him on the camera when he arrived in store, so meanwhile I was on my way out to the shop floor to try and confront him. It was so quick. He was in and out of the store probably in under 45 seconds to a minute. It had taken me the same amount of time to spot him on the camera and get out to the shop floor to try and cut him off at the door, but he was way too quick. feeling of uselessness. There was nothing I could do about it. He'd come in, he'd got something else again, and he'd gone before there was anything I could do about it. You start to feel really down after some time because you don't feel as though your actions are having any effect. Whilst we were grateful that this person had been picked up and sent to prison, we were worried that long term this problem may reoccur. As I said, we were aware his family were living in the local area and that he would eventually return to reside in the area. As soon as they explained I would have the chance to meet the offender and to put across my point of view and the way his actions had affected myself, my team and my customers, I knew that this would probably have the effect that we needed to stop this problem from happening. After meeting with the police and after they explained quite thoroughly what would happen from point A to point B, I felt very comfortable in going there. I was apprehensive initially about visiting the prison. When I got to meet him, it was quite uncomfortable, but I got the sense that a lot of that uncomfortability was coming from him. I was quite at ease and I'd gone in there with a good idea of what I wanted to say, and I really wanted to get across to this person how his actions had actually affected a whole group of people. I explained to him that on one occasion when he stole an entire display of confectionery, how many complaints this had led to and the amount of time that then took from my staff's day. But I did get the sense from his body language and the way that he looked at me that he was taking on board what I was saying, and he was really beginning to understand just how many people his actions had actually affected. Whereas when I'd encountered him before in the store, there didn't ever seem to be any remorse. It was just a process that he was going through, where he seemed to be quite reflective now. I was actually sat face to face in a different environment and discussing this with him. Throughout his time in prison, I was kept informed of his progress and I was informed of his release date, so I knew he would be back in the local area. It's around 12 months now since he was released from prison. Can quite happily report that he's not been into my store once. I've actually seen him round and about with his son. He's got a two-wheel scooter and he was pushing that with his son stood on there, and it was a really nice sight. He looks a lot healthier. It was really encouraging to see that he's changed. He's a different person. He's not doing the same things he used to do. He's not keeping the same company he used to keep. He's not indulging in the same habits as he used to. And I'd like to think that, you know, the work that we've done with regards to restorative justice has made a big difference in his life.